So we ask this a lot. So if, as a real estate agent, you are asked the question, why should I pick you as my agent over anybody else? The answers are wild, how different they are.
Well, Dak, here's the deal. I'm the best there is, plain and simple. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I piss excellence, and nobody can hang with my stuff. I'm just a big, hairy American winning machine. If you ain't first, you're last.
And this goes back to not having a really strong USP, right?
Well, it goes back to not having a real conception about marketing and the psychology of what makes people move, right? Do you know what my answer to that was?
What?
I'm in a listing interview. This guy says to me,
I'm a lucky guy.
yeah. He says to me, why should I do business with you? I said, well, I'm pretty lucky. I sold his house.
Yeah.
And he was like, you are pretty lucky. I was like, I should probably have a better answer.
Right.
So we do see that all the time. We see I'm expert at negotiating, which is not quantifiable, right? Well, that may be your opinion, but how do I know that as a customer?
This car is crap. I will buy it for next to nothing. How next to? Well, here are your options. You can sell it for parts, drive it off a cliff, you can donate it to a person that you'd like to see die in a car crash, or you can sell it to me. It's got to be now.
Well,
Let's
I have
seal the deal.
the blue
Let's
book
do it.
values.
Let's do this thing. 3, 2, 1.
Can I
5,
think about it?
4, 3, 2.
Let
Now,
me think
now,
about it.
now.
Think about
Say
it.
it. Do it
I'm
now.
thinking about
Do
it.
it now.
I'm thinking.
Do it. Shake my hand. You will sell me this car. Shake my hand. Yeah. All right.
So if you're going to use, I am an expert in negotiating, what you have to do is then take the math. So on average, my clients get this much % off compared to list price, right? That would show in a way that they care about you actually are an expert, because people say all kinds of things. There's on the way drive home now, there is this lady that's an insurance agent that has 2 billboards that don't say anything about anything. It just says that she sells life, home, and auto.
Yeah.
And it makes me cringe every single time I drive by, because I'm like, it's just a glorified business card with your picture on it, and you're lucky you're a pretty attractive person, because some people will call. Yes. If I had to guess, if that number that she has up on there is actually tracked, I would guess that there's only males between 25 and 65 that call in.
In fairness to her and everybody else that advertises like that, like if you don't have a real grasp of marketing, which most people don't, admittedly, you think about marketing in the way that big brands have taught us to think about it, right? So what she's trying to do is she's trying to brand herself, right? So when you think of home, auto, or life, you think of her. Unfortunately, I read a stat the other day that was like 10,000 advertisements per day that we're exposed to now, more than ever before. So we tune those out. So unless you had like 50 billboards in like a 3-mile radius that was just obnoxiously branding her, nobody's going to remember that without a benefit of them doing business calling her, right? So the insurance realm, my little brother got an insurance, so I've been spitballing different things he can do with him. There's people that do that are good at that, and that's what I suggest that he does. Like, hey, go find some mentors, find a coaching program, find some people in a tribe that really knows this stuff, knows what to advertise, that most people look at and they're just like, oh, that doesn't work. I would never do that. I remember the first time that I was learning about the guaranteed sale program, right? People were like, oh, that doesn't work. That doesn't. And I'm like trying to tell them why it works and why they should do it. And these are adults, and I'm like 21, you know what I mean? And finally I'm like, you know what? I'm glad that they don't want to do it. I'm glad that they don't get it. Because everybody would do it then. It would lose its luster. But, even to piggyback off of what you said, quantifying it out, like, in the university, I talk about how to get testimonials that are bangers, right? And so it's the same thing. You just take and do the math, right? Even 2% more, or 2%, my sellers on average get 2% more out of their home sale than the average industry average. Well, what's that dollar amount? Is that $10,786? Because that's what you should be saying instead, because that's quantifiable. Oh, I call Mike, I get 10,000 more, right? Yeah. Like, I'd rather call Mike than this person who just says they're an expert negotiator. And if you're an expert negotiator, look, I get it, right? You want to accentuate the positives, but you got to do it in a way that is understandable to the general public and quantifiable. It's the same thing with people who've been in construction, right?
Yep.
Like, oh, well, I've been in construction. I really understand, the difference between a good house and a bad house. How? Right? Seriously. I mean,
why should I believe you?
You can't see behind the wall,
right?
Well, you're going to get out your square and make sure everything's plumb. You know what I mean? Like, that's what a home inspector. that's worth $385. That's not worth, a $10,000 or $12,000 commission, right?
Right.
Yeah. What astounded me was attorneys. I had several attorneys flip from that industry to get in the real estate. And I'm like, bro, you think it's easier over here? Are you kidding me? You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, it's the same game. You got to attract the customer. You got to service the customer. You got to differentiate yourself. And they would get in thinking that would be their competitive advantage. And then they would still stay in the shadows as well because they never understood this point, right? Like, how to quantify in a way that is understandable to the public your differentiator, your unique selling proposition, your elevator pitch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just WIFM,
Yeah.
right?
What's
That's
in it for me?
all they care about. And if you can make it a compelling thing, I saw an agent one time had it. I've seen two done really, really well, where they took like whatever the average was in a neighborhood to show how much more they get to sell people's houses for.
Yeah.
Another one that took like I think it was FSBOs or expireds. I think it was an expired book. So it was literally every single expired she's ever had, she put into a book, and it's like a testimonial book for any expired listing she gets in touch with, and she takes that to the listing presentation.
Yeah.
And it's like, this person was on expired, and I sold it in 17 days. This person, I sold in this many. And it's like just proof of the thing that they're trying to solve currently.
What's even better is the customer in a picture of it. My home expired with another agent after 6 months on the market. Mike sold it 17 days for 101.2% of the asking price, or 10,000 more than the list price, right? Whatever it is. Those things are just powerful, and people don't take the time to think about it through that lens, and they think about it again through traditional marketing lens, where if you have billions of dollars like Coca-Cola to spend on advertising, okay, that's great. Do it that way. But if you don't, you got to find a way to cut through the noise. Get direct to the customer. And my favorite thing is people think that because they have a relationship with someone, or because they know them through a sphere, like that they're obligated to do business with them. But they don't care about you. They're going to do business with whoever is offering them clearly and tangibly something of value. I was at a party one time, and I was young, and the guy that was there was young, and his friend was a real estate agent. Fortunately, he was a really big guy. He said to me, Mike, I got to sell my house. I want to call you so that we could talk about it. And his friend was there, and I did a lot more business than this guy then. And he was like, oh, well, F him. He was like, we're friends. Why would you do business with him? He's like, well, he's got a guaranteed sell program. He's like, F his guaranteed sell program. I was like, yeah, bro, like there's enough business to go around, like trying to backpedal. But it's that powerful, right? Even in front of his friend. He's like, forget you, bro. I'm going where the benefit is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that we just overlook that so often, that we take things for granted, or by saying things like, I'm an expert negotiator, or I know so much about design and how to stage a house. And that's they don't care. You have to make the connection, because in your head, you're like, well, they should make the connection of, I'm really good at this, so it's going to get them this. Yeah. But you have to actually just tell them exactly what that means for them. 100%. Otherwise, they will just 99% of the time, I would assume, they just don't get that, right? Like, sure, that'd be nice to have an expert negotiator, but if this person's making a much more compelling offer, then bada bing, bada boom.
You know what they think a lot of times? I'm an expert negotiator.
Wow, so true.
Yeah. You should have saw the car I bought last. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Especially with the wife's of, Yeah, I would always have to delicately dance around the ego of the husband for the negotiations, right? Like, and point out how good of a negotiator he was. Hey, they didn't give you this, but because you're such a good negotiator, they didn't give you that. So they came back with X. And I'm sure you'll agree that that's pretty good offer. You should move forward.
That was a gangster little play.
Oh yeah. You have to, especially being a kid. You know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna dominate this 55-year-old man in front of his wife.
Right.
Like,
no.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.